The Seaboard System Railroad freight train that jumped the track near Owasso, Alabama Friday has caused the evacuation of more than 600 residents and a lot of headaches for rescue and emergency personnel. At least 2 tankers loaded with dangerous chemicals burst into flames, making it next to impossible for anyone to get a close look at the accident site. The heavy smoke and possibly toxic fumes from the fire were of great concern to authorities, who could only stand by and watch as the tanker cars burned into the night. By early Saturday morning, emergency personnel and Seaboard officials had been up all night monitoring the fire. Because of the mixture of chemicals, authorities say they weren't jumping at conclusions or solutions. The only thing to do was wait. Members of the State Troopers' Hazardous Material Response Team tried to re-enter the fire area before sunrise Saturday morning. But as with previous attempts, heavy smoke and heat kept them away.
Well, we went in, we were just going to take a look and see what the situation was at that time, and one of the cars had vented and was burning extremely hot, and we just felt we should back out and let it burn itself out in case there was an explosion from that car.
But by mid-morning, the picture had changed. The smoke and fire had diminished enough for railroad crews to enter the area and begin the slow process of removing cars one at a time from the track. Seaboard officials say the dangerous cars must be removed from the area before the usually busy railroad route can be reopened.
There are 2 ammonia cars that have derailed. They are on their sides. They are not leaking, however. The plan is to re-rail and remove those cars from the scene and take them down the railroad and transfer their contents to either 2 other tank cars or tank trucks.
The company's spokesman says it will probably be several days before we know what caused the derailment. State officials say by midnight Saturday, all but a few families should be returned to their homes. Gary Gordon, WSFA TV News, near Owasso, Alabama.
Alabama has 31 black mayors, more than any other state in the Union. These mayors believe the way to get ahead in the world is on their own 2 feet. They believe in fostering leadership and bringing about economic emancipation for their constituents, black and white. Today, they honored 12 Alabamians, politicians, businessmen, and civic leaders who feel the same way they do, including Republican Senator Jeremiah Denton. The mayors chose as their keynote speaker the editor and publisher of Ebony and Jet magazines.
The important point here is that black leaders must help themselves before they can help others. I run into so many young people who want to help our people. I say, you are our people. Help yourself.
Johnson praised civil rights leaders of the 60s, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but says he has gained the respect of the white community not because of the NAACP or Reverend Jesse Jackson, but because he is a hardworking and successful businessman.
I maintain that black business leaders don't have to leave their businesses to participate in the civil rights struggle. They are in the struggle when they are in their offices. Each of us has a role to play. People who are not working can march. People who are working ought to be on their jobs.
Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News.
Attention all racquetball players, it's the 3rd annual Captain Crunch Classic at the Montgomery Athletic Club. 230 racquetballers are in it this year, with last year's champion Mark Morrison returning as the #1 seed. MAC's director Mike Colin says Morrison in the green shirt will find his toughest competition from this year's #2 seed, Mike Ray, playing today in the dark blue top.
Mark Morrison, who was our winner last year, Mike Ray from Georgia, and Andy Roberts, the Cannon from Memphis is what they call him, are the 3 best, really the 3 best amateur players in the country. And those 3 obviously should be, 2 of those folks should be in the finals tomorrow afternoon.
Play will resume tonight at 9 p.m. The finals continue all day Sunday. Sonny Smith's Tigers were tired entering today's game. They began Wednesday night and had played 4 straight days. It showed early on. Alabama led all of the game until the overtime period. The Tide had a 2-point lead heading into the final minutes of regulation. Wimp Sanderson had called for the delay game, and without the 45-second shot clock, the Tide was content to hold on until the final whistle. But with 11 seconds left, Auburn's Frank Ford hit a perfect jumper from the corner. That tied the game at 49. On the inbounds pass, Bama's Terry Connor was called for charging. Kerry Holland went to the line to win the game for Auburn, but the lone Tiger senior missed and the game went into overtime. In the extra 5-minute period, neither team scored until Auburn's Gerald White went to the free throw line and hit both with 10 seconds left. It was now 51-49. Bama still had a chance to win, but the Tide's Mark Godfrey dragged his foot, was called for traveling, and Auburn got the ball back, and the man of the hour, Frank Ford, put an exclamation point on the entire season with a dunk at the buzzer. Sonny Smith, his career at Auburn not over yet, will take his Tigers on to the NCAA tournament, beating Alabama 53-49. It appeared Alabama would win today's conference championship against Auburn. The Tide had led most of the game, taking a 2-point advantage into the final minutes. But with 11 seconds showing in regulation play, Auburn's Frank Ford hit a jumper from the corner to tie the game at 49. Tiger Kerry Holland missed a free throw and put the game in overtime. It was still tied at 49 with 10 seconds left. Auburn's Gerald White hit both ends of the 1-and-1. Auburn was up by 2. An Alabama turnover gave Auburn possession, and Frank Ford added a stuff at the buzzer to seal the victory. Chuck Person was named MVP. He led Auburn with 16 points and their 4th victory in as many days.
Tried to hold it. We came out and we didn't panic, and everybody kept their spirits up. We were a little tired mentally and physically, but we reached deep within ourselves and came out with something extra.
I believe this in the game of basketball. When you play 40 or 45 minutes as we did today, no one play beats you. No one play wins for you. It's a combination of things that happen throughout a 45-minute period.
In my 27 years of coaching, this is the greatest group of kids that I've coached. I don't mean the best players. I've sure had some better than these people I got here, but I tell you, never have I had better people. And that's what makes coaching fun. For any of you that think coaching is great fun, try it sometime at this level. It's not fun. But if you got people like I have, it takes care of all that other stuff.
.4,800 residents strong, Union Springs is looking forward to a boom in industry, in jobs, and population.
We're fortunate to have a number of industries here, and one of our biggest, Wayne Poultry, they're expanding. Their expansion will create 100 new jobs in the near future. The city's working actively with them in this expansion and rerouting the streets around the area so that they'll have room to grow. The proposed state prison that'll be coming under construction within a month or so, that should add to our community greatly, you know, and the spin-offs from that would probably help Union Springs tremendously.
Union Springs isn't suffering as so many small towns are. Revenue sharing makes up a small percentage of the town's overall budget. So Mayor McGowan says if the cuts come, he and the city commissioners just have to work around them.
We're fortunate to have a council that's very conservative, and we watch our spending, but in regard to budget cuts, it will affect us drastically with our capital outlay programs in the future. We use revenue sharing money, for instance, for police vehicles, fire trucks, you name it, in capital outlay, but we don't use it in salaries or anything like that. So.
The mayor says Union Springs is far from perfect. He says most people still take their tax dollars out of town shopping, and there are few public recreational parks or swimming pools. But he says the growth potential is great, and he predicts only good times ahead. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News in Union Springs.
Alabama left Georgia in the starting blocks. Terry Connor outraced his man to the basket here for 2 of his 10 first-half points. Bobby Lee Hurt hit 4 of his first 5 attempts from the field, tallied 12 points by halftime, and finished with a game-high 18. The Alabama senior dominated the boards. In fact, Tide players swiped 10 of the game's first 11 rebounds and held a 22-8 advantage at the half. Alabama, by the way, is 16-2 when they've out-rebounded their opponents. This pretty much sizes up the first 20 minutes for Georgia. The Bulldogs blow a 2-on-1 break. Mark Gottfried makes the steal. Terry Connor winds up with it, drives to the hoop, scores, and is fouled. The Tide was up 31-18. Georgia coach Hugh Durham brought more problems on himself. Durham was whistled for a technical, and when Buck Johnson scored 2 of his 10 first-half points, the Tide had scored 9 unanswered points. Alabama was up by 20 at the half, 46-26, shooting 57% from the field in the first 20 minutes. Georgia would get to within 12 points in the second half on a basket by Gerald Crosby, 2 of his 8. But Buck Johnson quickly answered with a stuff, 2 of his 16 points. The Tide was rolling once again and would claim a 74-53 semifinal victory over Georgia.
I think our basketball team played in the first half about as well as it could play. We shot the ball well, our defense was very good. And our rebounding at the half, I think, was something like 20-6, and that made a big difference, too.
The big key was us coming out ready defensively and really taking them out of what they like to do on offense and getting them key rebounds when we had to have them and just playing real hard and aggressive.
There aren't any pictures of Eliza Lucas. In the 1800s, only the wealthy had portraits made. But her memory lives on in Montgomery, and her tavern, Lucas Tavern, has become the heart of the old North Hull Street Historic District. And while Eliza really didn't do anything terribly significant, there are some in Montgomery who feel her memory is worth preserving.
And Eliza typifies those thousands, I'm sure millions of women who did, you know, just pull up roots and take off and go. And if they had not been somewhat willing, the men probably would not have, not as many men would have been able to seek out this adventure.
Jump forward about 100 years to find Montgomery's most famous contributions to the jazz age, Zelda Sayer Fitzgerald and Tallulah Bankhead. But these legendary figures overshadow one of Montgomery's most noteworthy contributions to literature, Sarah Hart Mencken.
The South became the renaissance of American literature. And Sarah is right in the vanguard of that, actually. She was writing before Thomas Wolfe and before the success of Faulkner.
One of the most visible figures during the South's most turbulent era is Rosa Parks. But other women, like Virginia Durr, fought a more silent battle for basic civil rights.
I wasn't working solely for black rights. I was voting for the people, you know, everybody. I mean, the whites were just as much disenfranchised as the blacks by the poll tax. Poor whites, and all the women.
Mrs. Clifford Durr began her struggle in Washington and carried it back with her to Montgomery. And like many other women and men, she worked long, hard hours for what she believed to be right.
All the work was not for nothing.
Terry Stanton, WSFA TV News.
The railroad tanker cars carrying several kinds of dangerous chemicals are still burning tonight. And so far, there is no explanation for the derailment and fire, which has caused the evacuation of more than 500 residents in a 4-mile area near Owasso. Officials say they are letting 2 cars loaded with liquid chemicals burn themselves out. But attempts are being made to water down a boxcar filled with paper near the flaming cars. Earlier today, members of the State Trooper Hazardous Waste Response Team moved into the area to cool down the potentially explosive tanks, but the attempt was unsuccessful.
With the equipment they had, it was impossible to get sufficient water pressure to get the remote water cannons onto the fire. So as a result, they have pulled back out, and that was not accomplished.
Although there have been no injuries, authorities are concerned about the heavy smoke and hazardous vapors coming from the fire. Officials say they have a fairly good idea of what toxic chemicals are there, but say with more than one type involved, it's hard to say what could happen.
But still, even though you know what is on board, after it wrecks and cars are strewn all over the place, it's awfully hard to determine exactly what is what.
Authorities say they will stay at the scene through the night and decide in the morning if and when it will be safe for residents to return home. Near Owasso, Alabama, Carrie Gordon for NBC News.
That is
If you don't think quarter horses are big business, you should go to Montgomery's Garrett Coliseum this week. Quarter horse owners from across the country gathered there today to kick off the 28th annual Southeastern Rodeo and Livestock Show. The popularity of the quarter horse is growing. The dollar value of these animals go anywhere from $2,000 to $50,000. Quarter horses are also known for their versatility in these competitions, and the shows are known for drawing a crowd.
I think with the horse show, last year we had about 1,700 different entries, and I would guess this is probably over 1,000 people coming into Montgomery for this week, just for the horse show.
Quarter horse shows like this are becoming very popular in the Southeast. Owners say if you wanted to, you could find a different competition each week. But some Alabama horse owners aren't satisfied with just showing off their horses. They want to put them on the racetrack. As of now, there is nowhere in the 5-state area surrounding Alabama to race these horses. The closest track is in Louisiana. Owners say a quarter horse track in this state would bring in a lot of money in racing, training, and breeding programs. But so far, the newly formed Racing Commission in Birmingham hasn't added quarter horses to its list, and some owners want to know why.
They say there's no interest from the quarter horse and Appaloosa people, so we want to make certain that they do know that there's a lot of owners in this state that are very interested in being able to run and breed these horses.
And to show that interest, these 55 people today formed the state's only racing associations for owners of quarter horses and Appaloosas. Members plan to go before the Racing Commission and ask for dates to get their horses on the track. And although they aren't yet on the racing schedule, by the time the track is open, they hope to be at the starting gate. Carrie Gordon, WSFA TV News.
What can we do to encourage more people?
Oh, yes, we've got to do something. Let the dollars flow so sickle cell will go. This weekend, the
Frenchie B. of WQIM in Prattville signed on the air at 6 o'clock last night, hoping to get people to pledge $50,000 to pay for sickle cell screenings in Lowndes, Autauga, Elmore, and Montgomery counties. Meanwhile, at 133 locations in the 4 counties, donations were collected by volunteers, including some who manned 24-hour grocery stores. All this work paid off. By the end of the day, more than $20,000 have been collected, with the largest donation being $2,000 from a brewery. All the money will go to fund educational projects and screenings for the blood disorder, which primarily affects young blacks. Last year, the Sickle Cell Foundation checked 2,163 people for the disease and the trait, and the Radiothon helps make this all possible. After 24 hours of talking, Frenchie B. was tired, but thankful for being able to help raise the funds.
This was a weekend. It took all for me. And for the Sickle Cell Foundation, who needed your support and cooperation. From the bottom of my heart, thank God and all of you for giving me the strength.
Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News.
And to what we saw, 24 hours of broadcasting. And speaking of
We had the second alarm, which means we had 4 pumpers, 2 ladders, 3 district chiefs, and some other service units coming in.
So no indication of what started it right now?
Not at this time. We're just getting under control, doing a little overhaul, and we'll be able to tell you that a little later on.
First half of the game, North Carolina Tar Heels in white on a fast break. Kenny Smith, he feeds Steve Hale. Hale on the layup as North Carolina would jump off to an early lead. Then Steve Hale here on the miss. Warren Martin on a rebound to Kenny Smith. Kenny Smith would hit the jump shot. North Carolina would take a 5-point lead, 32-27 at the half. Second half of the game, Georgia Tech in gold comes back. Yvonne Joseph on a miss, but Bruce Dalrymple on a follow-up. He had 14 points in this game. The tournament's most valuable player, Mark Price, would lead Tech. He hit 16 points. He would lead the Tech comeback in this battle. Then trailing 44-40. Tech's Bruce Dalrymple will hit a tough jumper in the lane. Tech trailed by only 2. Then tied 50-50. 52 seconds to go. Yvonne Joseph makes one foul shot. Tech would never trail again as Georgia Tech wins the ACC title 57-54 over North Carolina. I'm George Michael for NBC News.
The longest birdie putt in the final round of the Bay Hill Classic belongs to Mark Lai. Here's Lai on the second hole going a country mile for part of his final round score of 5 under 67. The champion is Fuzzy Zoeller. In only his third week back on the tour after major back surgery, Zoeller fired a final round 67 and won by 2. Tom Watson was second. Here's his birdie putt on 12 that put him at 7 under par. That's how he finished, but it's the best he's done in 85. Lai wound up finishing third at 6 under par, 1 shot back of Tom Watson. Honda Classic champion Curtis Strange finished fourth at 4 under par. Strange started the day tied with Zoeller at 5 under par. Strange shot even par 72 today. This was an especially satisfying win for Zoeller because he proved to himself and the rest of the tour players that he will be competitive again. Andy Lascano for NBC News.
The Hawks took a 1-run lead in the 6th inning when Philip Morgan hit a grounder to short. The throw to force the runner at third was wide, and number 15, Darrell Richardson, scored easily. But the Cavaliers pulled away in the 7th. A hit line past third base allowed 3 runs to score. They go on to win by 2 runs. The Hawks will play next Thursday in Troy against the Trojans, while Virginia will head east to face Auburn in a 4-game series that begins tomorrow.
And he told them that if you vote for me and if you help me, that I would change. I would help you to get jobs. I would appoint you to significant boards and commissions in the state of Alabama. He told blacks that, and he tricked us.
We came up to the door that day, and he sent the secretary. He listened intently. He promised to give serious consideration.
On the side of history that we struggled to realize 20 years ago. Putting us in the Eden. He can say that I'm all right with blacks, that I'm not prejudiced toward blacks. Well, everyone will say that now, but the record does not reflect that. I called the state, Ray Bass, state highway director, and said, look, we want you to hire some blacks over there, if not, we're going to relieve you. He served as the chairman, the state secretary, nothing. Only blacks that work over there after 5 o'clock, that those that come and clean up, the janitors and maids, the Alabama Development Office, the Alabama.
I want my 400 feet put on that corner back over there. Had some vacant apartments, and one section of them was on fire when they arrived on the scene.
that there's no problem with anybody in the apartments. We don't know what caused it yet.
Owens faces 3 years in prison, a $2,500 fine, and $10,000 in restitution to a local doctor who paid that amount for a non-existent Gulf Shores condominium. That sentence is on appeal. Terry Travis, chief of the district attorney's white-collar unit, says the sentence in the Owens case should be considered a warning, and that Owens' troubles with the law may not be over.
I think that jury made a statement that will be heard by the real estate agents statewide, that if you conduct your affairs in the manner in which Mr. Owen did, not only will you be held accountable to the Real Estate Commission and possibly have your license revoked, you will be indicted by a Montgomery County grand jury, tried, and based on the facts be found guilty. And as to Mr. Owen, that was the first complaint that we have investigated, but I do not expect that it will be the last. The investigation is ongoing.
The sentence handed down by Judge Mark Kennedy is the second in this case. Owens received the same prison term in a plea bargain last October. But that was overturned by the judge after defense attorneys successfully argued several legal points in the first trial concerning plea bargains agreed to. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Montgomery County Courthouse.
Senator Bond says despite marches and demonstrations of the past, civil rights in America are slipping away, and only a strong foothold in education can save them.
No society can succeed if it does not educate its people, or if its people have no protection against bigotry and prejudice.
The senator, a former right-hand man to Martin Luther King Jr., says the progress made during the 60s is being erased by several factors in the 80s, the most prominent being Ronald Reagan.
Last November, the people in their infinite wisdom spoke again. They've reinstalled the evil empire and re-elected an amiable incompetent who clearly intends to take the federal government entirely out of the business of enforcing equal opportunity.
Bond says the Reagan administration has spent the last 4 years destroying the dream of equal rights and is spending money trying to find ways to destroy humanity rather than help save it.
The choice they put before us is greater than guns versus butter. It's soup kitchens and surplus cheese versus expensive airplanes and malfunctioning tanks.
Terry Stanton, WSFA TV News.
Years ago that the Alabama State Teachers Association last met here, and certainly I'm glad that we are back in the city of Montgomery, because after all, Montgomery is a good place. Farm education alone. We have an obligation, we have a responsibility, we have a challenge.
Got elected, there was absolutely nothing that could be done with the way the structure of state government is, with the way that legislature operates, because the sure enough special
in America's space program from the very beginning. And I believe that Alabama is in a good position, not only to benefit from high technology, but also to make important contributions from our abundance of intelligent people and natural resources. Diameter, it's about 150 feet long. The external tank, the reddish color here in the center and there. I believe that technology is our nation's most marketable product. In a time of negative balances of trade and budget deficits, I think we must begin considering very seriously how we can maintain our lead in certain areas of technology and how we can regain the lead in certain others where we've fallen behind.
The whole issue is that the employees are getting...
At the same time, we asked them to listen to our part of it so that
This facility first came to the public's attention last summer when a 77-year-old resident of Brown's security home was hospitalized with burns and bruises over her body. 3 days later, security homeowner Jeanette Brown was arrested by Dothan police on assault charges in connection with the incident. In October, a Houston County Circuit jury found Mrs. Brown guilty of first-degree assault. She was later sentenced to 12 years in prison. Soon afterwards, the State Department of Public Health stripped the facility of its operating license. But in December, it reopened under a new name, St. Michael's Rest Home, and a new owner, civil rights activist Reverend R.B. Cottonreader. 91-year-old Mary Freeman lived here. Sunday, Mrs. Freeman was found in this bathtub, filled with scalding water.
It was so hot we could not test it fully, but it was 189 degrees plus. So we don't know how much hotter than 189 degrees it was.
Mrs. Freeman was taken to a Dothan hospital where she died last night of severe burns. The district attorney believes Jeanette Brown, who is out of jail on an appeal bond, is still involved with the facility.
I'm concerned if Ms. Brown is still operating this in violation of the fact that her license was taken away. I'm concerned about the kind of care that goes on out there.
Reverend Cottonreader says he does lease the building for Mrs. Brown, but adds she does not work there.
I'm for writing, and I feel that, in fact, I know it was an accident.
A state health investigator has been at the scene today. His report is expected tomorrow. Cal Catherway, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
The Southeastern Open Championships are sandwiched between the state turkey calling contest in Jackson Tuesday and the World Championships in Mobile Thursday. Artificial calls can be used in the competition, but no electronic devices or recordings are allowed. Competitors can use funnels, box, and slate calls, but the mouth call is still the most widely used turkey call. This is the mouth call Evergreen's Eddie Salter used to help him win the Southeastern Open title in 1981.
The tree call is the first sound that the hen will make in the morning time when she just kind of letting the flock know where she's at, or the old gobbler, she just mumbles out a little small yelp.
Although the judges do not see the competitors, Salter says turkey calling contests resemble beauty pageants.
Just depends on the judges what they want to hear and everything. People travel all over from New York, Ohio, and everywhere, and it's just a great event.
An owl hooting contest will precede the turkey calling competition Wednesday at 6. Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sport.
Yes.
Is everybody in here?
Put it down. Put it down. Let's go.
There you go. Turn it over.
Fellas.
Yes.
A great team. Hey, hold it now. Let me tell you something. I honestly mean this. A great team is not just satisfied with this now.
That's right.
Hey, fellas. Let's don't be satisfied with this sucker. Let's go get a nut.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Will you do that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right.
Let's get this train,
Hey,
y'all. Let's pray.
you might be the finest group of people I ever been associated with. I'm kind of happy I met you. Bless your heart. Let's pray.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thy is the kingdom, power, and glory, and forever. Amen.
I'm very pleased with Judge Pyle's decision. In that decision, I'm very cognizant of the fact that a lot of understanding and compassion was involved there. I'm very appreciative of that. And the only thing left to say is my wife and I are looking forward to kind of picking up the pieces.
Certainly, I'm happy, first of all, to be in the tournament. And we're playing an awfully tough team in Arizona. The information that I've gotten from the non-conference teams that have played them has been outstanding. I've had one coach tell me they're the best team getting the ball inside that he'd ever seen. That covers a lot of territory. And they play a packed-in zone on defense. They have a great shooter and a young man named Kerr who's on the perimeter. They have a young man named Smith on the inside. They're not a real big team, but they're extremely quick.
He's no doubt the most recognized player on the Auburn team. With over 60 consecutive games in double figures, the team's leading scorer and the SEC's #2 scorer, it's easy to see why.
Auburn's Chuck Person is known around the conference because of his scoring and rebounding. But if you ask anyone who knows basketball, they'll tell you Chuck Person is a complete player.
Well, I feel like a complete player is a player that's not one-dimensional. I think a complete player has to score, rebound, pass, play defense, and do all the fundamental things.
From his play on the court, it's obvious Person has worked hard to achieve that complete player status. He currently leads the Auburn team in 4 categories. In scoring, he's averaging over 22 points per game, has had 5 games over 30 points, and scored a career-high 39 in the Tigers' victory over Florida in Gainesville. In the record books, the 6'8" junior from Brantley is currently the 4th leading all-time Auburn scorer. If he continues at his current pace, he has a chance to be #1, and that's something he's shooting for.
I score a lot of points, and I feel like that's a goal I can reach, and I would like to be known as Chuck Person, the greatest player that ever played at Auburn.
With his talent and accomplishments, there's no doubt Person could depart Auburn for the NBA after this season. But he says his Auburn experience means too much to leave right now.
I'm enjoying myself a lot here at Auburn, and I wouldn't have signed with any other school now if I had a choice, because the people here are great. They treat you like you're humans and not like you're just some kind of athlete. And I've been planning on attending Auburn for another year instead of going hardship.
Last year, he received a great deal of attention as the alternate for the U.S. Olympic team. This year, Person is one of the 11 finalists for the John Wooden Award, given annually to the top basketball player in America, which shows his talent is respected nationwide. His impact on Auburn basketball has been dramatic during his career, and he'll be back providing his basketball magic for the Tigers for another season. From the athletic department, Mike Hubbard for the Auburn Basketball Review.
In the House chamber, where there's a flurry of legislative activity during a session, there's one voice amongst a multiplicity of others that's easily recognizable. Alvin Holmes, known for his frequent trips to the microphone. Whether it's to sponsor a bill or filibuster to defeat one, Representative Holmes is known for successfully maneuvering in the legislative process, a forte admired by some of his colleagues and disliked by others who call his style militant, pugnacious, controversial, and usually always racial in nature.
Let's take as members of the House, this is just a march. As you know, we have in the state of Alabama many visitors from all over the country that are presently in the state of Alabama, and people from all walks of life, both black and white, Jew and Gentile. And I think it's properly fitted that certainly this resolution, only thing it does.
Holmes is an avowed representative of the poor and oppressed. Most of his legislation has civil rights overtones, like his bills introduced in the '84 regular session to combine the state's Confederate holidays. It was defeated, and a Martin Luther King holiday bill, which passed. His latest proposal, introduced again this session, recently passed a House committee, is the statewide lottery bill, a proposal that would generate an estimated $60 to $100 million each fiscal year. In 1981, Holmes was rated by his colleagues in a poll conducted by the Alabama Magazine as the state's most ineffective legislator, a dubious distinction he was glad to hear. Said Holmes, that's good news, and added, if a militant black legislator such as himself wins any kind of popularity contest in a white-dominated legislature, then he would know he was doing something wrong. Clearly, Holmes has always been a lawmaker to monitor. This regular session, he's considered among the most effective lawmakers in terms of knowing how to juggle in the legislative system, a system that makes what one colleague says natural enemies, Representative Alvin Holmes.
White male. Same white male. I don't know if it's the same white male, but it's
white male in all three. Say the same thing.
And it sounded like a recording. Somebody said that the clinic was going to blow up in 15 minutes. So we called the police department and we locked up the clinic and we evacuated.
You said this has happened before, so y'all weren't really that shocked, right?
Right. It has happened in the past. Maybe we moved a little more quickly this time since there have been some actual, quote, blow-ups lately.
They've been grooming them, feeding them, and practically living with them for the past 8 months. And today, these students, all members of 4-H or FFA clubs, are here at the State Steer Show to show off their handiwork.
It teaches youngsters bookkeeping if they keep records like they should on their cattle, and it teaches them many of the things that they should know when they go out into the real world.
Not all the students are farmers. Quite a few city dwellers have learned a little bit about life on the farm. And then, of course, there's the inevitable question, what happens to the steer when the show's over? Well, after all, farming is big business, and the business world can be tough. The steer will be auctioned tomorrow. Most of them, especially the winners, will bring top dollar.
Most of these youngsters will make a little money, we hope, on this project. They're not in the financial bind that most of our farmers are in.
But regardless of the money, how do you say goodbye to a steer you've practically raised?
Well, selling tomorrow, and that'll be it.
Terry Stanton, WSFA TV News.
People on camera, that's what we do like.
Those portable generators, we always had to send someone down here to pick them up.
We have several other law enforcement agencies throughout the South, approximately 3, that have serious charges pending against Gary Porter. And at this time, he's being held in the Taylor hardened facility near Tuscaloosa where he's being evaluated. It will be approximately 3 weeks before his return to us, and we are trying to set a date sometime in April for a trial.
How many times have women been told to avoid walking alone at night, to carry mace or a whistle, to always keep doors locked, not to open doors to strangers, keep curtains closed at night, and more? How many times? And how often does the lack of precaution lead to an attack? It's hard to gauge just what makes a man rape, but statistics show that women who avail themselves to the crime are the ones who are most often attacked.
There's several types of persons that will commit a rape, and one of the most common is an opportunist. And this is the individual who will take advantage of an opportunity simply because it does exist.
The prescription for avoiding a rape, there's not one. Every situation is going to be different, and until you're in it, you can't know what to do. But there are some common sense guidelines that we should all abide by. At home, get a security check. Make sure all your windows and doors have locks, and put a chain on your door. Keep your curtains closed. Don't open doors to strangers, and never admit to living alone. In your car, have your keys ready in your hand when you leave your house or car. Keep your car locked at all times, and if you break down, stay in your car and keep your doors locked. And while walking, stay in lighted areas, and avoid walking alone at night. These precautions, again, are not fail-safe. However, they might keep you from becoming a statistic. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
And you've got to have equal debits.
The previous decade has seen a number of changes in education. Student test scores have risen to and occasionally above the national average. Teachers are being more carefully screened before leaving college.
I am becoming more and more convinced that we're turning a corner, one that has eluded being turned for quite some time. I think we're beginning to change the image of public education in this state.
The image is shifting from that of a growing financial obligation to that of an investment.
Since we use the state income tax and the state sales tax to generate revenue to operate schools, they will in turn use the product of our schools to generate profits for themselves.
From May to September,
the latest proposed investment is the so-called Career Ladder, a program of evaluating teachers regularly and rewarding the better teachers financially.
This program lays the groundwork to respond to many of the problems facing public education today, and I intend to see this effort move forward. I'm confident the Career Ladder plan will pass this year.
There are other issues AEA and Governor Wallace agree on this year, and because of this particularly close relationship, it's no surprise that Governor Wallace won AEA's Friend of Education Award. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
That cookie, but I could cook an egg on a rock, but that ain't 48 hours. She was an organizer. She organized the garden club. Mrs. Powell Williams, who was my mother, and they had a wonderful time. They were a trick in the tree. They went to California, they went to Canada. I sold Girl Scout cookies not only as a Girl Scout, but as a leader. We had boxes to sell, and they were, at that time, you could buy a box of cookies for 25 cents. Now you buy a box of cookies and you pay $1.50 for them. But they're the same good cookies they were. I would say primitive camping and camping out, and I did go to the Dismal. But I can tell you they're a wonderful organization, and they're a great deal for the girls of Montgomery and girls of the world.
The Troy Rivers Waterway is now a dependable navigation system, thanks to the removal of rocks last year from Florida's Apalachicola River. Troy Rivers President Baxter Harcourt says his group led the way on the removal effort.
There was absolutely no other group, not the Georgia Ports Authority, not the Alabama Docks, not another single organization, ladies and gentlemen, that was responsible for the rock relocation at Chattahoochee, Florida, which enabled us to have this new improved channel today.
The Columbus, Georgia attorney says it's now up to leaders in all 3 states to promote the waterway to attract new industries. He says the benefits are far-reaching.
Anywhere you go up and down this river, a job on this side of the river is going to benefit the other side of the river.
Harcourt says cooperation and hard work are necessary for the waterway to reach its potential.
It's going to take a concentrated effort by people working together for us to build industry down the road, to build a volume of business on this river.
Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
Thank you, Mr. Harcourt. Eustace?
Look, and we're doing everything we can, and you still got body stores.
Before losing to Auburn in the SEC Tournament Championship game, Alabama had won 7 straight games. And Tide coach Webb Sanderson prefers to think his team can get back on the winning track Friday night in Albuquerque.
It's been a couple of days of disappointment, but I think our players will bounce back. I think the one characteristic of our program and our team is that after every disappointing loss, that we've seemed to bounce back with a lot of willingness to win and trying hard, and I know that our team will be well prepared. We're going to really work very hard to get ready for Arizona.
Sanderson says Alabama's outside shooting must improve to beat Arizona, a team that uses a matchup zone defense. Alabama has faced Illinois State, Lamar, and St. John's in their last 3 NCAA first-round games. But Sanderson considers Arizona to be better than any of them.
Arizona is by far, from a standpoint of quickness and overall shooting and defensive play, where they pack it in the middle, has to be the most outstanding team that we have drawn. And it could very possibly be because there are no byes, and you got to go head up against really good teams to start off with. Now,
the road to Lexington is a long one. The schedule indicates the championship game will be played April 1st, but that's only on paper.
The championship game for us will be Friday night, just as it is for everybody, and you have to play well every time out.
Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
White male. Same white male. I don't know if it's the same white male, but it's
the white male in all 3. Say the same thing.
Ask us for our money and our late fees and this. You see what we have to go through day in and day.
We'll be in Friday. Let me tell you, we will be in Friday.
That's right. Friday's payday.
Atta baby, atta baby. Good job.
What we call a matchup zone, and we're going to have to try to shoot the basketball on the perimeter a little better, and hopefully we can open them up inside.
That's right. Georgia's playing extremely.
They beat Kentucky by 10 at home at Purdue early in the season, and they defeated Mississippi State 77-46 on a neutral site. That's the only way I can gauge them.
In overtime. McKee got a hand on it. Ford. He takes the pass and jams. Auburn wins.
Auburn coach Sonny Smith.
In the 5 years that the SEC has kept the stats, we've been the top defensive team 4 out of the 5 years. So we're doing something right defensively. And, you know, with the type of record we have this year, you know, having one of the winningest percentages in the country and the type of talent we play, we feel, you know, we're prepared, you know, for the tournament.
I think there's a chance to get back to Birmingham, and if you get to Birmingham, I think the sky's the limit. And I just believe that if this team will play within their limitations, don't take the bad shots, play the good defense that they played during the tournament, keep that shot selection, proper shot selection down, and believe in one another like they've started to recently, that they could go a very long way. I really do. I'm only concerned about the way I felt when I went to practice yesterday. I'm feeling the same way. But I'm not going to feel that way today, I can assure you of that.
He's a sales representative with International Minerals. This fellow, I guess, in the room tonight. Now this is a do run. For business education, he said in his spare time he fished. Get our middleweight champions, Dr. Topel, I'm gonna
It was a normal day at the Dothan-Houston County Airport, but in 6 weeks, things will be different. These passengers will not be able to fly Republic. Republic officials say the pullout is due to money, not enough passengers to make it profitable for jet service.
This is happening all over the country. We did our best to keep Republic here with jet service, but of course that's a corporate decision they had to make.
A Republic spokesman says Dothan is better suited for smaller commuter planes. Dothan is now served by Atlantic Southeast Airlines. Today, a second commuter announced it's coming to Dothan.
Welcome to Dothan.
Eastern Metro Express now serves 8 cities in the Southeast, including Montgomery.
We have long considered Dothan a prime market for our service.
Reed says Eastern Metro will begin service by June 1st with 5 daily round-trip flights to Atlanta. Dothan officials are very optimistic about the airport's future.
We're going to do everything we can to help them and the other airline here, ASA.
We're looking for better things here at the airport. We think that it's going to work out so that the passengers going to and from Atlanta are going to have more options than they've ever had before.
Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Dothan.